Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today's lesson is on estimating answers. And our goal is we're going to estimate answers using something called an about fraction. So estimate just means you're using about numbers to help you do math in your head. So if I had in one pocket $4.12 and in another pocket $5.97, I could say, well, instead of saying $4.12, I could say that's about $4. And in the other pocket, $5.97 is about $6. So I could say I have about $4 plus $6, which is $10. So using these about numbers helps me do math in my head, which we often refer to as mental math. So we're going to be doing that. The goal of using mental math and finding about answers is to come up with a reasonable answer. Reasonable means your answer makes sense. So if I had told you, well, I have $4.12 in one pocket and $5.97 in the other pocket, and then told you, I think I have about $100, that doesn't make sense at all. There's no way that $4 and some change and $5 and some change can add up to be $100. So we just want an answer that makes sense. Okay, these two symbols, the first one you've seen before, it's just a regular equal sign. This means it's equal. It means they have the exact same value. So 4 is equal to 4. I could say that 5/10 is equal to 5/10. You learned in the last lesson that 2/4, when I simplify it, is also equal to 1/2. They have exactly the same value. This sign, which looks kind of like an equal sign, but it has a little wave to it, means they're approximately equal. They're close. So not exact, but close. That's what that one means. So I could say that $4.12 is about $4. It's an about answer. I could also say that if I had a fraction, say I cut something into 20 pieces and I have 19 of the pieces, I have about one whole. Barely anything has been taken out of the pan. But if I cut it into 20 pieces and I only had one piece left, that means I almost have nothing. I have about 0 left. Okay, so when we do this, we're going to stick with 0, 1/2, and 1. The reason we're going to focus on those is those are easy to do in our head. So those are going to be the about fractions that we want to work with, okay? And I drew pictures for you so you can see what they look like. Okay, so let's practice what this looks like. So this one has been cut into 10 pieces, which means that's my denominator, and I have 9 of the pieces. So I want to ask myself, am I closer to having nothing? Am I closer to having half, or am I closer to having the whole thing? Sometimes I like to cut it in half to see, but this one is pretty clear. I have almost one whole. I have almost the whole thing colored in. Okay, this one's a little tricky. So it's been cut into 4 pieces. That's my denominator. I have one of the pieces. I definitely am not close to having one whole. I'm missing a lot of it to be the whole. Let's cut this one in half. And hopefully what you see is if I had one more shaded in, I would have half. But if I have one less shaded in, I would have nothing. So this one you actually could say is about 1/2, or you could have said it's about 0. Either one of them you would be okay with as your answer. But this one would not work because you are nowhere close to having a whole. This one did not show up very good in the shading. This was supposed to be, these two were supposed to be shaded, so we'll shade them in. Okay, this one says It's been cut into 3 pieces, so that's my denominator. And my numerator is I have 2 of the pieces. So I'm going to cut it in half to kind of help me. Well, I definitely am not going to say I have 0. I have a lot colored in. So what am I closer to? Am I closer to having the whole thing colored in, or am I closer to having half? I would say I'm closer to having half colored in. So those would be my about fractions. So I could say 9/10 is about 1, 1/4 is about a half, or it's about 0, and 2/3 is about a half. Okay, but we're going to actually have to do this without the pictures. You could draw the pictures if you need them. So for 2/5, I could draw the picture if I needed it. I could say the 5 tells me it's been cut into 5 pieces, and the 2 tells me that I have 5 of the pieces. So I could draw it if I needed to. And then I could do the same. I'm going to cut it in half to kind of help me. So 2/5 looks to me like it is about 1/2. It's pretty close to being half. Another way you could have looked at that is if you think about 5, 2 is almost half of 5. So you could have looked at it that way as well. So for 7/8, let's try that. Is 7 closer to half of 8? Is it close to having almost 8, or is it close to 0? Well, 7 is almost having 8 because half of 8 would have been 4. So I would say 7/8 is about 1 whole. 3/4 is another tricky one. 3/4, well, if I had 4/4, that would be 1 whole. If I had 0/4, that would be 0. But if I had 2/4, that would be a half. So this one, and I'm going to draw it to show you, the 4 means it was cut into 4 pieces, and the 3 means I have 3 of the pieces. But look at what the half is. This is kind of like that 1/4 up here. I'm 1 piece away from having a whole, but I'm also 1 piece too many to have half. So for this one, you could have said 3/4 is about 1, or 3/4 is about 1/2. Either one would be an acceptable answer. Okay, so what are you actually going to be doing? Well, your steps are, you're going to be change fractions to your about fractions, and you're going to use 0, 1/2, and 1. And you can use models if needed. So if you need to draw the pictures, you can. And then once you have your about fractions, you're going to solve to give you an estimate answer, which means a reasonable answer, an answer that makes sense. So that's really what we're doing today. Okay, so what does this look like? Well, here's my first one. Patricia ran to the park, which is 2 1/4 miles away. Later, she ran to her cousin's store, which is 5/8 of a mile away. How many miles did Patricia run altogether? So how many miles did Patricia run altogether? They're asking me to add. So they're asking me to add 2 1/4 plus 5/8. But for this lesson, all we're going to do is come up with a reasonable answer. Well, 1/4, and I can look back if I need to, 1/4 is either about a half or about 0. So I could have said either. I could say just 2, because I'm going to say it's 0, or I could say 2 1/2. I'll show you both of them. 5/8, well, if I think about 5/8, 4/8, 4 is half of 8, so it's really close to being half, so I'm going to say that's half. So 2 good acceptable answers would have, you could have said 2 plus a half is a half, or you could have said 2 1/2 plus another half would be 3. Either of those would be great reasonable answers. Okay, let's look at another one. Okay, Jonathan bought 3 7/8 pints of lemonade. After playing football, his mom brought him 7/12 pints of lemonade. How much lemonade does he now have? Well, let's see. 3 7/8 plus 7/12. So 7/8, 7 is way more than half of 8 because half of 8 is 4. So 7/8 is almost 1 whole. Well, if I have 3 whole and almost 1 whole, I'm going to say that's about 4. And then 7/12, well, half of 12 is 6, so I have almost half of the pieces. So I'm going to say that's about a half, which means my about answer or my estimate answer is going to be 4 1/2. Okay, let's try some of these. Okay, my first one is, Alyssa made 2 5/8 quarts of lemonade on Friday and 1 1/2 quarts of lemonade on Saturday. How much did she make on those 2 days combined? Well, let's see. 2 5/8 plus 1 1/2. So, oh, I skipped to your homework. I'm already helping you in your homework. I'm going to actually skip right back up. Sorry. Alyssa made 2 5/8. Ooh, I really helped you out because they're the exact same problem. So we'll just go right back to that one then. Okay, so 5 is a little bit more than half of 8 because half of 8 is 4. So I would say 5/8 is about a half. So I'm going to say that's about 2 1/2 plus, I wouldn't change the 1 1/2 because half is already an easy one. So plus 1 1/2. So we have 2 1/2 plus 1 1/2. Well, the halves, half plus half is 1, so I'm saying that is 4. Okay, I'm not going to do the other one for you because then you'll have nothing left for homework. So really, you only have one more problem. Rate your understanding, and we'll practice this tomorrow. Okay, bye guys.